The humid air of Haven's jungle clinic clung to Oliver's skin like a second layer as he worked over the wounded colonist. His calloused hands moved with practiced precision, the scanner's blue light revealing fractured ribs beneath torn flesh. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his brown eyes remained steady, focused entirely on saving the life before him. "Hold still, Martinez," he murmured, his voice carrying that particular calm that had made him the colony's de facto leader. Just a little deeper with the bone knitter. The clinic's bioluminescent panels cast an ethereal glow over the makeshift medical bay, carved into the heart of a massive grove tree. Oliver had learned to blend human technology with Haven's natural resources. The tree's sap had proven remarkably effective at preventing infection, and its hollow chambers provided perfect sterile environments. A rustle at the entrance made him glance up, and his breath caught. She stood in the doorway like a vision from another world, which, he supposed, she literally was. Her iridescent skin shifted between deep purples and midnight blues, constellation patterns flowing across her slender form like living starlight. Large amber eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, fixed on him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Delicate tendrils framed her face, twitching with what he'd learned to recognize as velar nervousness. "Healer Oliver," she said, her voice melodic but strained. The translator implant rendered her words in accented standard, but he could hear the musical undertones of her native tongue. "I am called." She paused, her tendrils curling inward. "The sound does not translate well to human ears." "Then I'll call you something that does," Oliver said gently, not moving from his patient but offering her a small smile. "How about Starling? Your skin reminds me of a star field." Her luminescent patterns dimmed to almost black. Fear, he realized. The Valar's skin betrayed their emotions as clearly as human facial expressions, once you learned to read them. "My people," she whispered, stepping no closer to the medical table, "they are dying. The sickness spreads through our groves like fire through dead leaves. Our healers, we cannot stop it." Oliver's hands stilled on the bone knitter. The plague had been ravaging the human colony for weeks, but if it had jumped species— How many affected? 3 groves, perhaps 4 by now. Her skin flickered between blue and gray. "The elders said I should not come, that humans are chaotic, dangerous to touch. But you came anyway." Starling's gaze met his, and for a moment the fear in her eyes was overshadowed by something else, hope, perhaps, or desperation. "Because they also die, and you." She gestured at Martinez, who was breathing easier now, color returning to his face. "You save lives. I have watched from the tree line. Your hands bring healing, not harm." Oliver finished sealing the last of Martinez's wounds and helped the man sit up. "Rest here for an hour, then take it easy for the next few days. The bone knitter needs time to fully integrate." "Thanks, Doc," Martinez said, his relief evident. "Don't know what we'd do without you." As Martinez settled back, Oliver finally turned his full attention to Starling. She stood rigid, her skin now a nervous silvery blue, tendrils quivering like leaves in a breeze. He could see the war playing out across her features, cultural conditioning warring with desperate need. "Will you let me help?" he asked, making no move to approach her. "I can examine samples, maybe find a treatment that works for both our species." You would need to touch them, the infected." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, "to touch me, to guide me in your methods. Only if you're comfortable with it. We can start with just talking, sharing information." Starling's skin pulsed, a rapid flutter of colors he couldn't quite interpret. She took a step forward, then stopped, her whole body trembling. "The elders say human touch burns like acid, that it strips away our essence, leaves us hollow." Oliver held up his hands, palms out. "These hands have delivered 17 babies, set countless bones, and held dying friends in their last moments. They've never hurt anyone I was trying to heal." Something in his tone seemed to reach her. The frantic pulsing of her skin slowed, settling into a deep sapphire blue. "Show me," she said finally. "Show me how to save my people." Outside, the jungle of Haven sang its eternal song, a symphony of alien life that had become as familiar to Oliver as his own heartbeat. But beneath that beauty, he knew, dangers lurked. He'd noticed the strange ships in the outer system, too distant to be traders, too numerous to be explorers. Whatever was coming, they'd need all the allies they could get. And perhaps, in this luminous being who had overcome her deepest fears to seek his help, he'd found something more valuable than an ally. As Starling took another tentative step into his clinic, her skin beginning to glow with cautious hope, Oliver felt the first stirrings of something he hadn't experienced since arriving on Haven. The feeling that he was exactly where he belonged. The twin moons of Haven cast silver light through the clinic's transparent walls as Oliver and Starling worked side by side, a careful arm's length between them. 3 hours had passed since her arrival, and the tension in her shoulders had only slightly diminished. Her skin maintained a cautious blue-green hue, occasionally flickering to brighter blues when their research revealed promising leads. "The pathogen appears to be synthetic," Oliver said, adjusting the scanner's frequency to penetrate velar tissue samples. "See these protein chains? They're too perfect, too targeted. This wasn't a natural mutation." Starling leaned closer to the display, her tendrils practically vibrating with concentration. "Our healers sensed something unnatural about the sickness, but we lack the tools to see what you show me." Her voice carried a note of wonder. "Your devices, they reveal the invisible world." "Science and technology working together," Oliver explained, pulling up comparative scans. "Your people use biological harmony, feeling the patient's life force, reading the patterns of disease. We use instruments to measure what we can't naturally sense. Neither approach is complete alone." As he spoke, he reached across her to adjust a control, his forearm brushing against her wrist. The contact lasted less than a second, but Starling jerked back as if shocked, her skin flaring brilliant sapphire. "I'm sorry," Oliver said immediately, pulling his hand back. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't hurt me." The words came out in a rush, and Starling's skin deepened to an even richer blue, patterns swirling like galaxies. It was warm, like sunlight on water. She looked down at her wrist where he'd touched her, her tendrils curling forward as if to protect the spot. Oliver felt his pulse quicken. The translator couldn't capture the breathless quality in her voice, but he heard it nonetheless. "Starling?" She wouldn't meet his eyes. "My people, we share essence through touch. It is sacred, intimate. We are taught that alien contact corrupts that essence, makes us less than whole." Her skin shifted to gold, a color he hadn't seen before, but your touch felt adding, not taking away. Before Oliver could respond, the clinic's proximity alarm chimed. The holographic display shifted to show the perimeter sensors, revealing a cluster of unfamiliar energy signatures in the upper atmosphere. Too large to be supply ships, too aggressive in their formation to be peaceful. "Raiders," Oliver breathed, his blood turning cold. He'd seen ships like these in the outer colonies, pirates who preyed on isolated settlements, especially those weakened by disease or disaster. Starling's skin went pale silver. What are raiders? Trouble. Oliver was already moving, pulling up the colony's defensive systems. "They're drawn to weakness like scavengers to carrion. A plague-weakened colony is an ideal target." He paused, looking at her. "Your people need to know. If they're monitoring our communications, they'll have detected velar life signs, too." "I must return to warn the elders." Starling gathered her flowing robes, but hesitated at the doorway. "The medicine we discussed, the combination of your synthesis techniques and our cellular harmonics, I'll keep working on it. But Starling—" Oliver stepped closer, close enough to see the swirling patterns in her luminous skin. "Your people and mine, we're stronger together. These raiders, they'll try to divide us, make us compete for resources while they pick us apart." Her amber eyes searched his face. "You speak of alliance, but the elders fear human chaos, human unpredictability. Then show them human ingenuity instead." Oliver moved to his supply cabinet, pulling out a portable medical kit. "Take this. The scanner will help you identify infected individuals before symptoms appear, and the synthesizer can produce basic treatments using local biomatter." Starling stared at the offered equipment, her skin cycling through rapid color changes. Fear, hope, desire, caution. "You would trust me with your technology?" "I would trust you with my life." The words hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than Oliver had intended. Starling's skin blazed golden, the constellation patterns racing across her form like captured lightning. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out and took the medical kit from his hands. This time, when their fingers brushed, she didn't pull away. The contact sent electricity up Oliver's arm, and he saw her skin pulse brighter at the points where they touched. Her breath caught, a soft sound that made his heart race. For a moment they stood frozen, connected by more than just the transfer of equipment. "I will return," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "When the warnings are given, when my people are prepared, I will return to continue our work. I'll be here." She nodded and turned to go, then paused. "Oliver?" His name sounded different in her musical voice, softer somehow. "Your touch does not burn, it sings." And then she was gone, vanishing into the jungle with fluid grace, leaving only the fading echo of her bioluminescence and the memory of her skin against his. Oliver stood alone in his clinic, watching the raider ships circle Haven like predators testing their prey. The plague still raged, his people were vulnerable, and now external threats closed in from above. But for the first time since arriving on Haven, he felt something like hope. Starling would return, and when she did, perhaps together they could find a way to save both their peoples and explore the impossible connection that sparked between them whenever they touched. In the distance, the jungle drums of the Valar began to beat, carrying warnings through the night. The sound mixed with the hum of human technology, creating a harmony that hadn't existed on Haven before tonight. A harmony that might just save them all. The Valar groves rose like cathedral spires from Haven's jungle floor, their bioluminescent bark casting ethereal patterns through the canopy. Oliver moved carefully along the elevated walkways, his medical pack secure across his shoulders, every step a calculated risk. He'd never been this deep in Valar territory before, few humans had. Starling glided beside him with unconscious grace, her skin a shifting tapestry of deep greens and silver that seemed to mirror the grove light around them. She hadn't spoken since meeting him at the boundary markers, but her tendrils betrayed her nervous energy, twitching at every sound from the settlement above. "Your people are watching," Oliver observed quietly, noting the subtle movements in the higher branches, the brief flickers of alien forms. "Always." Her voice carried a note of resignation. "The elders granted permission for you to enter, but trust must be earned with the Valar. We are cautious by nature." They emerged onto a platform carved from living wood, where several Valar had gathered around a makeshift medical station. Oliver's breath caught at the sight before him, beings of ethereal beauty reduced to shadows, their normally radiant skin dim and mottled with dark patches. The plague had taken a terrible toll. An ancient Valar approached, his bark-like skin cracked with age, obsidian eyes regarding Oliver with undisguised suspicion. His grip on a ceremonial staff was white-knuckled, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of generations. "You are the human healer," he said, the translator rendering his tone flat, but Oliver could hear the underlying hostility. "Starling claims you possess knowledge that can save our people." "I believe I can help, yes." Oliver kept his voice respectful, patient. He'd dealt with skeptical patients before, though never entire species. The pathogen responds to a combination of synthetic antivirals and bioharmonic resonance. Your healers understand the resonance. I can provide the synthetic components. The elder's staff tapped against the platform. "You speak of combining our sacred arts with your machinery." "I speak of saving lives," Oliver replied simply. "May I examine the patients?" A younger Valar, barely more than adolescent by their proportions, lay on a bio-woven stretcher. Their skin flickered weakly, constellation patterns fading like dying stars. Oliver knelt beside them, his scanner humming softly as it analyzed their condition. "The cellular degradation is advanced," he murmured, partly to himself, partly to Starling, who had moved to stand beside him, "but not irreversible. If we can synthesize the antiviral in a biocompatible matrix." He looked up at Starling. "I'll need to show you the injection technique. The medication has to be administered at specific points where your people's bioelectric field is strongest." Starling's skin shifted to that familiar nervous blue. "You would need to guide my hands?" "If you're comfortable with that." The elder made a sound of disapproval, but Oliver ignored him, focusing entirely on Starling. He could see the war playing out across her luminous features, duty warring with cultural conditioning, hope fighting against fear. "Show me," she said finally. Oliver prepared the synthesized treatment, his movements deliberately slow and clear so she could follow the process. When he lifted the injection device, Starling moved closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Here," he said softly, guiding her hand to the correct position on the patient's arm. "Feel for the bioelectric pulse. There, you've got it." Her skin flared golden at the contact, and Oliver felt that same electric charge race through him. But more than that, he felt something else, a sense of rightness, as if this was exactly where they belonged, working together, healing together. "I can feel it," Starling whispered, wonder in her voice. "Your knowledge flowing through the touch, showing me what I cannot see alone." The injection was smooth, practiced. Within moments, the young Valar's skin began to brighten, constellation patterns growing stronger. A collective sigh of relief rose from the gathered watchers. "Remarkable," the elder breathed, his suspicion giving way to amazement. "The healing light returns." They worked through the afternoon, treating patient after patient. With each success, Oliver noticed the Valar growing more accepting of his presence. More importantly, he noticed Starling growing more comfortable with their necessary touches, guiding hands, shared instruments, moments of contact that no longer made her flinch. As the twin suns began to set, painting the grove in amber light, Starling walked with him back toward the boundary. Her skin glowed with soft satisfaction, the anxious flickering replaced by steady, warm patterns. "Your medicine works better than our healers dared hope," she said. "But it is not just the medicine, is it? There is something about the way you work, the confidence in your touch." Oliver paused on the walkway, turning to face her. "What do you mean?" "When you guide my hands, show me the techniques. I feel your certainty, your belief that healing is possible." Her tendrils curved forward, almost but not quite touching his face. "It is a kind of magic we do not possess." "It's not magic. It's just," Oliver searched for the words, "it's refusing to accept that something can't be fixed. Humans are stubborn that way." Starling's laugh was like wind chimes, musical and bright. "Yes, I am beginning to understand this human stubbornness." Her expression grew serious. "The raider ships, they have moved closer. Our scouts report weapon signatures, scanning patterns that suggest hostile intent. They're probing for weaknesses, standard raider tactics, find the most vulnerable moment to strike." Oliver's jaw tightened. "We need to coordinate our defenses, share intelligence." "The elders are considering this. Your healing work today has opened minds that were firmly closed this morning." She hesitated. "There will be a gathering tomorrow night, a formal discussion of alliance. Will you come?" "Of course." They had reached the boundary markers, ancient stones that glowed with soft Valar biolight. Starling paused, her skin cycling through colors Oliver was beginning to recognize as internal conflict. "Oliver," she said finally, "when you touch me to guide the healing, it does not feel like corruption. It feels like—" She struggled with the words, "like coming home to a place I have never been." Before he could respond, she reached out and briefly, gently, touched his cheek with her fingertips. Her skin blazed like captured starlight at the contact, and Oliver felt his breath catch. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me that fear and healing cannot coexist." She turned and melted back into the grove, leaving Oliver standing alone at the boundary, his cheek still tingling from her touch. Above them, the raider ships continued their ominous patrol, but for the first time since their arrival, Oliver felt confident they could be faced. The Valar were beginning to trust him. More importantly, Starling was beginning to trust herself around him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. But tonight, under Haven's star-filled sky, the first real seeds of alliance had been planted. And something deeper. Something that made Oliver's heart race whenever he thought of the wonder in Starling's eyes when their hands had worked together to bring healing. Something that felt very much like the beginning of love. The emergency klaxon shattered the pre-dawn quiet of Haven Colony, its harsh wail echoing through the grove where Oliver worked feverishly over his latest batch of synthesized treatments. He looked up from the bioprocessor to see Jake, The wiry technician who kept their equipment running burst through the clinic doors, his usually cheerful face grim with urgency. "Doc, you need to see this," Jake said, his fingers flying over a portable analysis unit. "I've been running deep scans on those plague samples like you asked, and—" he paused, shaking his head. "This thing isn't natural. It's not even close to natural." Oliver abandoned his work, moving to study the data streaming across Jake's screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. These protein markers, they're engineered, artificial. The implications hit Oliver like a physical blow. The Raiders! They didn't just show up here by coincidence, they're behind the plague. Gets worse, Doc. I've been monitoring their communications, and they're not just planning to loot the colony. They're planning to strip mine the entire planet. The plague was supposed to kill off the indigenous population so they could claim Haven as uninhabited. Oliver's hands clenched involuntarily. The careful alliance he'd been building with the Valar, the trust Starling had begun to show him, all of it had been orchestrated by raiders who saw both species as obstacles to profit. A soft rustling at the entrance made them both turn. Starling emerged from the pre-dawn shadows, her skin dim with exhaustion but pulsing with excitement. "Oliver, I bring news from the elders." She stopped, her tendrils detecting the tension in the room. "What has happened?" "The plague," Oliver said grimly. "It's not a natural outbreak. It's a biological weapon deployed by the raiders." Starling's skin went ash pale, then flared crimson. "Weapon? You mean they deliberately, poisoned both our peoples, yes, to weaken us before they attack." Oliver pulled up the genetic analysis on the main display. Jake found the proof. The pathogen is engineered to target specific neural and bioelectric pathways unique to humans and Valar. For a long moment, Starling stared at the data in stunned silence. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a tremor of rage that Oliver had never heard before. "They murdered our children for convenience, which means they know more about both our species than they should," Oliver continued, his mind racing through implications. "Someone provided them with detailed biological data. This level of targeting requires extensive research." Jake cleared his throat. "Actually, Doc, I might have an idea about that. I've been tracking the Raiders' transmission signatures, and some of them match patterns from the old survey ships that cataloged Haven before colonization." "Corporate espionage," Oliver breathed. "They bribed someone to steal the biological surveys." Starling moved closer to the display, her skin shifting through rapid color changes as she processed the revelation. As she leaned forward to study the data, her shoulder brushed against Oliver's arm. This time, instead of flinching away, she seemed to lean into the contact, drawing strength from his presence. "My people must know," she said. "This changes everything. The Elders' resistance to alliance, their fear of human contact, all meaningless in the face of this threat." "There's more," Jake added, pulling up a tactical display. "I've been monitoring their ship movements. They're not just scouting anymore, they're positioning for a full assault. I'd estimate we have maybe 48 hours before they make their move." Oliver studied the formation patterns, his tactical training from his military medical service kicking in. "They're trying to divide us, force us to compete for resources while they pick us off separately. Classic divide and conquer." "Then we must not allow division," Starling said firmly. Her skin began to glow with determination, constellation patterns racing across her form like living galaxies. "The gathering tonight, it will become a war council." As they spoke, another alarm began to sound, this one from the colony's perimeter sensors. The main display shifted to show external cameras, revealing Valar scouts racing through the jungle, their skin flashing urgent warning patterns. "Raider ground forces," Jake reported, his scanner picking up multiple energy signatures. "Looks like they're probing our defenses, testing response times." Oliver was already moving, grabbing his medical pack and emergency supplies. "Jake, get to the communications center. Send word to all human settlements, full defensive positions, and prepare for coordinated assault." "Starling." I will carry word to the elders and return with warriors, she said, but she hesitated at the doorway. Oliver, when I return, the War Council will require strategic planning that I do not possess. Your military knowledge, your tactical thinking. I'll be there. The elders may ask you to prove your commitment to our alliance. Oliver met her gaze steadily. What kind of proof? Her skin flushed golden, the color of vulnerability he'd learned to recognize. Among my people, battle bonds are sealed through touch, sharing of essence, of strength. It is intimate. And you're worried about what that might mean for us? I am worried, she said softly, that I want it to mean something. Before Oliver could respond, explosions echoed through the jungle as raider forces tested the colony's outer defenses. Starling's skin flared with urgent crimson, and she turned to go. Starling, wait. She paused, looking back at him. Oliver crossed the distance between them in 2 quick strides, his hands rising to frame her face. Her skin blazed at the contact, tendrils curling forward to brush his wrists. When you return, he said quietly, we'll face whatever comes together, both the battle and what's growing between us. Her eyes widened, amber depths reflecting the light of her own luminous skin. For a heartbeat, she leaned into his touch, her warmth flowing through him like liquid starlight. Then she was gone, vanishing into the jungle with fluid grace, leaving Oliver standing in the doorway of his clinic as the sounds of approaching war grew louder. Doc? Jake's voice was carefully neutral. Not that I'm judging, but getting involved with an alien during a war might complicate things. Oliver watched the glow of Starling's skin fade into the distance. Jake, I think we're past the point of avoiding complications. Fair enough. So what's the plan? Oliver turned back to his clinic, his mind already racing through tactical possibilities. The raiders had made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed that fear and biology would keep humans and Valar apart. They couldn't have anticipated the bond forming between him and Starling, or the trust that had grown from their shared work. The plan, Oliver said, beginning to gather supplies for what promised to be a long siege, is to show them exactly how dangerous human ingenuity can be when we're fighting for something we love. Outside, the first exchange of weapons fire lit up the jungle night, and the real battle for Haven began. The great council chamber, deep within the largest grove tree, thrummed with tension as representatives from both species gathered under its bioluminescent canopy. Oliver stood at the edge of the circular space, acutely aware that he was the only human present among dozens of Valar whose skin flickered with agitation and uncertainty. The ancient elder who had questioned him earlier, whom he'd learned was called Threneth, occupied the chamber's center, his obsidian eyes reflecting the grove light as he addressed the assembly. "The human brings grave news," Threneth announced, his translator rendering the formal tones with ceremonial weight. "Raiders have poisoned our worlds with engineered death, seeking to claim Haven for themselves." Murmurs rippled through the assembled Valar, their collective skin glow creating waves of color that reminded Oliver of aurora displays. He could read the emotions now, purple fear, red anger, silver uncertainty, all bleeding together in a living tapestry of anxiety. Starling emerged from the gathering, her own skin cycling through rapid color changes as she approached him. In the few hours since their parting, she seemed to have grown somehow more luminous, as if the urgency of their situation had intensified her natural radiance. "The elders debate alliance," she said quietly, positioning herself beside him in a show of support that didn't go unnoticed by the watching Valar, "but some fear that joining with humans will bring only more chaos to our ordered lives." "And what do you think?" Her tendrils curved forward, almost brushing his cheek before she caught herself. "I think chaos and order must sometimes dance together to create something new." Before Oliver could respond, Threneth called for attention. "The human will speak. Let us hear what Alliance offers that we cannot achieve alone." Oliver stepped forward, feeling the weight of dozens of alien gazes upon him. He'd given medical briefings before, even tactical reports during his military service, but never had so much hung in the balance. "Honored elders," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's natural acoustics, "the raiders count on our separation. They've studied both our species, learned our weaknesses, and crafted weapons designed to exploit them. but they've made one crucial error. He paused, letting his gaze sweep the assembly before settling on Starling's luminous form. They don't understand our strengths. Speak of these strengths, Threneth commanded. Human technology excels at adaptation, at finding new solutions to impossible problems. But technology alone isn't enough. It needs wisdom to guide it, harmony to perfect it. Oliver gestured toward Starling. Your people possess something we lack, the ability to sense life patterns, to feel the flow of biological systems. Together we've already achieved what neither species could alone. A younger Valar near the chamber's edge spoke up, her skin bright with curiosity. You speak of the healing work, the plague treatments that combined our arts with your science. Exactly, and if we can heal together, we can fight together. Oliver pulled out his portable display, projecting tactical data into the chamber's center. The raiders expect us to compete for resources, to turn on each other when pressed. Instead, I propose we coordinate our defenses, share our strengths, and show them what two species can accomplish when they work as one. The display showed Haven's geography, marking human settlements and Valar groves, raider ship positions, and projected attack patterns. Oliver manipulated the hologram, demonstrating defensive strategies that utilized both human technology and Valar mobility. Your people know this jungle like no human ever could, he continued. You can move through the canopy unseen, strike from directions the raiders won't expect. Our weapons and shields can provide the firepower you need to make those strikes count. Threneth studied the tactical display with interest. You propose joint operations, human and Valar fighting side by side. I propose survival, Oliver said firmly. Apart, we're vulnerable. Together, we're something the raiders have never faced before. A commotion near the chamber's entrance interrupted the discussion. A Valar scout burst in, her skin flashing urgent red-orange warning patterns. She spoke rapidly in her native tongue, and Oliver watched the color drain from every assembled face. What is it? He asked Starling. Raider forces have landed, she said, her voice tight with controlled fear. Multiple sites. They're attacking the outer settlements, both human and Valar. The council chamber erupted in urgent discussion, but Threneth's staff struck the wooden floor with authority, demanding silence. The time for debate has ended, he declared. What do you require from us, human healer? Oliver felt his pulse spike with adrenaline and something deeper, the fierce protectiveness he'd developed for this world and its people. Fighters who know the jungle, guides who can move our forces unseen, and healers who can keep both species alive during the battle. And in return, weapons, shields, medical supplies, and tactical coordination. Oliver met the elder's obsidian gaze steadily. And my word that humans will stand with Valar as equals, not conquerors. Threneth was quiet for a long moment, then turned to address the assembly. The stranger healer has proven his worth in peace. Now we shall see if he can prove it in war. He faced Oliver directly. I grant provisional alliance, but know this, human, if your people betray this trust, no corner of Haven will shelter you. Understood. As the council began to disperse, organizing into war parties and defensive groups, Starling moved closer to Oliver. Her skin had settled into deep, determined blues shot through, with golden highlights that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. There is one more thing, she said quietly. The battle bond I spoke of earlier. If you are to coordinate our forces, to share in our tactical awareness during combat. What does it involve? Her tendrils trembled slightly. A joining of essence, temporary but intimate. I would need to, she hesitated, to touch you deeply, to share the bioelectric patterns that allow Valar to sense each other's positions and intentions. Oliver felt his breath catch. And you're willing to do that, despite your people's taboos? My people's taboos do not include bonds forged in necessity, she said, but her skin betrayed her nervousness with rapid color shifts. But Oliver, such bonds, they change both participants. We would be connected in ways that go beyond mere alliance. Around them, the chamber emptied as Valar rushed to prepare for battle. In moments, they would be alone in the grove light, facing a decision that would alter not just their tactical options, but the very nature of their relationship. Starling, Oliver said gently, reaching out to almost but not quite touch her luminous cheek. Are you asking because it's necessary for the battle, or because you want it?" Her skin blazed golden, so bright it cast shadows on the chamber walls. "Both," she whispered. "Is that wrong?" "No," Oliver said, closing the distance between them. "It's honest." Outside, the sounds of approaching warfare grew louder. Weapons fire, shouted orders, the rumble of machinery. But inside the ancient grove chamber, two beings from different worlds prepared to forge a bond that might save them both. And perhaps, Oliver thought as he watched starlight patterns race across Starling's skin, create something beautiful in the process. The sacred grove pulsed with ancient bioluminescence as Starling led Oliver deeper into its heart, away from the preparations for war. Here, in a chamber carved from living wood and lit by patterns that had grown for centuries, she paused, her skin cycling through rapid color changes that betrayed her internal conflict. "The battle bond," she began, her musical voice barely above a whisper, "requires absolute trust. I must touch your mind as well as your body, share the bioelectric patterns that connect all Valar in combat." Oliver could hear the distant sounds of the colony mobilizing, weapons being distributed, defensive positions being established, the urgent chatter of coordinated preparation. But here, in this timeless space, everything narrowed to the luminous being before him and the choice they were about to make. "What exactly does that mean?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle, non-threatening. Starling's tendrils quivered as she lifted her hands, positioning them near his temples without quite touching. "I will need to establish neural contact, synchronize our biorhythms, and open a direct channel between our consciousnesses. It will allow you to perceive the battlefield as a Valar does, to feel the movements of our warriors, to understand their intentions, to anticipate the raiders' every move through our collective awareness." Her voice dropped to a near-inaudible whisper. "It will also allow you to feel me, my emotions, my thoughts, my very essence, unfiltered." Oliver's heart hammered against his ribs. This wasn't just a tactical advantage, it was an act of profound intimacy, a merging of souls that transcended anything he had ever known. He looked into her amber eyes, which glowed with a mixture of fear and resolute determination. "And you're willing to do this? To trust me with that?" "For Haven," she said, her voice gaining strength, "I would trust you with everything. For my people, I would give anything." She took a deep, trembling breath. "But also, for us, Oliver. I want to know what it feels like to be truly connected, without the old fears, without the ancient taboos, to see if this singing you spoke of can become a symphony." He reached out, his hands gently cupping her luminous face. Her skin blazed under his touch, the constellation patterns swirling wildly before settling into a vibrant, steady gold. "A symphony it is, then," he murmured, his thumb tracing the delicate curve of her cheekbone. "Show me, Starling. Show me how to save us all." With a soft, almost imperceptible sigh, Starling leaned into his touch. Her tendrils, no longer quivering with nervousness, extended and gently brushed against his temples, then his jawline, and finally settled against his neck. A warmth, unlike anything he had ever experienced, began to spread from the points of contact, seeping into his skin, then deeper, into his very bones. It wasn't a physical heat, but an energetic one, a vibrant hum that resonated with his own life force. Then a cascade of sensations overwhelmed him. He saw the grove not just with his eyes, but with 1,000 eyes. The rustling of leaves became a symphony of movement, the faint chirps of hidden creatures a chorus of life. He felt the roots of the ancient tree beneath his feet, drawing strength from the earth, and the flow of sap through its mighty trunk. It was as if his own senses had expanded exponentially, interwoven with the primal awareness of the Valar. And then he felt Starling. Her emotions, raw and beautiful, flowed into him. The deep love for her people, the fierce determination to protect Haven, the lingering echoes of ancient fears, and beneath it all, a burgeoning, tender affection for him. He saw flashes of her memories, the quiet beauty of Valar rituals, the devastating spread of the plague, the fear of the human touch, and then, the moment he first offered her a hand, a beacon of hope in her darkest hour. It was overwhelming, breathtaking, and utterly profound. He gasped, not from pain, but from the sheer intensity of the connection. Starling's own skin pulsed wildly, mirroring his reaction. "It is much," she whispered, her voice now a resonant echo within his own mind, no longer needing the translator. "Are you well, Oliver?" "More than well," he managed, his voice hoarse. I can feel it all. The jungle, your people, you." A ripple of warmth like a gentle caress spread through his consciousness. It was Starling's relief, her joy at their successful connection. Now the battle bond, she projected, her thoughts clear and precise within his mind. "Focus on the raiders. Feel their movements, their intent. We will guide our forces as one." As if a switch had been flipped, the chaotic sensory input from the grove sharpened into a focused tactical awareness. He saw the raider ground forces, not as distant energy signatures, but as distinct, clumsy presences blundering through the Valar's sacred jungle. He felt the subtle shifts in the wind, the vibrations in the earth, the faintest disturbances in the canopy that betrayed their movements. He could sense the Valar warriors, a network of agile, silent shadows moving with preternatural speed and stealth, anticipating every raider's step. They are moving towards the eastern human settlement, Oliver thought, his mind now seamlessly blending with Starling's. Their heavy vehicles will be vulnerable on the old riverbed path. Agreed, Starling's thought resonated back. "I will direct our canopy fighters to engage from above, forcing them into the open. Your ground forces can then flank them from the south." The battle for Haven erupted with a ferocity that shook the very ground. Oliver, guided by Starling's expanded awareness, moved with a precision he'd never known. He directed human units with uncanny accuracy, anticipating raider maneuvers before they even fully formed. He felt the Valar warriors strike with silent, deadly efficiency, their movements a blur of bioluminescent grace in the shadowed jungle. The battle bond allowed him to see the flow of combat as a single, interconnected organism, every action and reaction instantly understood. He felt the fear of a Valar warrior pinned down by raider fire, and instantly, Starling projected a path for a human heavy weapons team to provide cover. He sensed a breach in the human perimeter, and together they rerouted a Valar ambush squad to cut off the raider advance. There were moments of intense pain, the distant thud of an explosion, the fleeting terror of a near miss that reverberated through their shared consciousness. But also moments of exhilarating triumph as their combined strategies turned the tide. Hours blurred into a relentless, desperate struggle. The raiders, confident in their superior firepower and their biological weapon, were thrown into disarray by the coordinated, unpredictable resistance. They had expected two fractured species. They found a unified, relentless force. As the twin moons began their descent, casting long, eerie shadows, the tide decisively turned. The raider ground forces, decimated and demoralized, began to retreat, their heavy vehicles struggling through the jungle they no longer controlled. Oliver, through the battle bond, felt a surge of collective Valar triumph, a joyous, resonant hum that filled his being. "They are fleeing," Starling's thought echoed, tinged with exhaustion, but vibrant with victory. "Their main assault ship is preparing to withdraw." "Not yet," Oliver projected back, his mind already formulating the next move. "Jake's been tracking their command ship. If we let them escape, they'll just come back later, better prepared. We need to cut off the head of the snake." He felt a flicker of hesitation from Starling, a deep-seated Valar aversion to unnecessary aggression. To pursue them into open space, it is not our way. It is the human way to finish what we start, especially when our homes are threatened, Oliver countered, projecting his unwavering resolve. And if we are truly allied, then our ways must merge when necessary. Starling's essence pulsed with contemplation, then a wave of acceptance. "Then we shall merge. Show me this human way." Under Oliver's direction, a contingent of human gunships, guided by Valar scouts who knew every hidden launch pad and atmospheric current, rose to intercept the retreating raider command ship. The battle bond allowed Oliver to coordinate their movements with impossible precision, anticipating the raider ship's evasive maneuvers before they even registered on their sensors. Starling, sharing his vision, directed Valar energy projectors from hidden jungle emplacements, providing crucial support fire that crippled the ship's shields. The final confrontation was swift and decisive. The Raider command ship, battered and outmaneuvered, spiraled out of Haven's atmosphere, exploding in a silent burst of light against the backdrop of distant stars. Silence descended upon the jungle, broken only by the sounds of exhausted breaths and the distant chirping of Haven's nocturnal creatures. The battle was over. Oliver felt the battle bond begin to recede, the intense sensory overload slowly diminishing. Starling's presence within his mind softened, becoming a gentle, comforting hum. He opened his eyes, finding himself still in the ancient grove chamber, Starling's tendrils still resting against his neck, her hands still cupping his face. Her skin, though still luminous, was now a soft, contented sapphire, the constellation patterns flowing slowly, peacefully. "We did it," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion and exhaustion. "We did," she echoed, her voice now audible, though still resonating with the lingering connection. Her eyes, deep amber pools, searched his. "Oliver, what we shared, it was more than just battle. It was everything." He leaned into her touch, feeling the last vestiges of the battle bond dissolve, leaving behind a profound sense of connection, a bond far deeper than any tactical alliance. "It was the beginning," he corrected, his voice thick, "the beginning of something truly new." Starling's tendrils gently brushed his hair, and she leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. "My people will never again fear the human touch," she murmured, her voice filled with wonder. "They will know it brings not corruption, but strength, not chaos, but harmony." The elders, led by a humbled Threneth, arrived moments later, their faces etched with exhaustion but glowing with relief and respect. "Human healer," Threneth said, his voice devoid of its former suspicion, "you have proven your commitment. You have saved us all." "We saved each other," Oliver corrected, looking at Starling, whose hand found his, intertwining their fingers. Her skin pulsed with a soft, steady warmth against his. In the days that followed, the alliance between humans and Valar deepened. Oliver and Starling, forever changed by their battle bond, became the living embodiment of that unity. They worked tirelessly to heal the last vestiges of the plague, combining human technology with Valar bioharmonic resonance to create a permanent cure that would protect both species. They established joint councils, shared resources, and began to build a future where the unique strengths of each species complemented the other. Oliver never left Haven. He became the bridge between two worlds, a healer and a leader, but most importantly, a partner to Starling. Their connection, forged in the crucible of war and deepened by shared intimacy, blossomed into a love that transcended species and culture. They explored Haven together, discovering new groves and hidden wonders, their hands often intertwined, their essences singing in harmony. The raiders never returned. Haven, once a vulnerable target, became a beacon of interspecies cooperation, a testament to what could be achieved when fear was cast aside and trust embraced. Oliver, looking at Starling, her luminous skin reflecting the starlight of their shared sky, knew he was exactly where he belonged. He had found not just a home, but a future, with the alien girl who had once feared his touch, and now begged for more. Their story was not just about survival, but about the boundless possibilities of connection, about finding love in the most unexpected places, and about a harmony that truly could save them all.